All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to P3 Educates. I am Devin Contour. I am a recent graduate of AMDA LA with a musical theater degree and just trying to make my way in this crazy theater world at the moment. And today we have actor, singer, performer, teacher, incredible performer, John Rinaldi with us. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Well, my name is John Rinaldi. I am from Orange County. I started doing music and theater pretty much from the minute I could talk. My parents used to love telling the story that they took me to the dentist when I was little, when I was like 2, and the dentist looked inside my mouth, inside the shape of my mouth, and said, "This child will be an opera singer." So
Oh
that,
my
and I
gosh.
don't remember that, but evidently that happened. But I wanted to sing from as early as I could. So I made them take me to auditions. I started doing shows, and I've just tried to always find a way to keep doing theater, keep doing music all my life. I've had to sort of make changes and adapt, like we all have been doing, especially now. But I'm proud to say I've never thrown in the towel all the way. I've put it on pause before, but I've been doing this for over 40 years.
Wow. So, how has kind of this whole COVID situation affected you and how you work and the industry that you work in and stuff like that?
It is so crazy, like it is for everybody. And I'm really lucky because um, I can do most of my work from home. I used to normally have people come over and take voice lessons in the corner where I'm sitting right now, face to face. But now, of course, we have Zoom. So I've been lucky that I can transition so easily from in-person lessons to Zoom lessons. And it's weird because in a weird way, it's almost been a little bit of a boon because I've had a lot more people because everybody's stuck at home. So I've had a lot more people saying, "Hey, it doesn't matter where you are. Can I take a lesson?" And people are working on their rep right now because they have nothing else to do. So I'm really fortunate I could do that. Prior to this, I was doing a lot of cabaret and I was flying back and forth a lot to California and New York. And so, of course, all that has stopped. And I was getting ready to try and start doing some theater and or some cabaret over here in Europe. And same thing, it's just everything just stopped.
Mhm.
They're starting to open things back up a little bit now, but it's all very like preliminary at this point.
Mhm.
So they're having like a few people do like little concerts where the audience is distanced, but things aren't really back yet. So it kind of remains to be seen. It's an interesting time to try to be like sort of reestablishing yourself because nobody knows me over here. So whereas in New York and in California, I at least have kind of a base. Over here, they're like, "Who are you?" So it's an interesting time, but I guess it's sort of good in a way because everybody's starting over from the beginning.
Mhm. Yeah. So I know that you started doing theater really young. How did you kind of fall into the theater world?
I mean, as soon as I understood that that was a thing that you could do for a job, that was the only thing I ever wanted to do for a job. I remember very clearly my dad took me to see the original production of A Chorus Line at the Schubert Theater in LA when I was in the 3rd grade. He pulled me out of school on a Wednesday and we went to see a matinee of Chorus Line. And we were driving home. I mean, the show blew me away. But then we were driving home and I said, "So where are all those people now? Where did they go?" And my dad said, "Oh, well, they had dinner and then they had to go back to the theater and do it again." And I was like, "What?" So he explained to me that that was what they did for a living and that, they did that 8 times a week. And I was like, "Well, that's what I want to do." And then from then on, it was pretty much, it had to be that. It had to be that. You know, I was already singing all the time and I had seen, things like Sound of Music and,
Mhm.
desperately wanted to be a Von Trapp child, actually someone to like sucked into the screen and live in that world. Um, so I just, as soon as I could, as soon as I was old enough to sort of research for myself kind of the mechanism, like how you get into shows, like what are auditions, how do you find out about them, and I had to like lobby for them to take me because they were like, "We don't want to push you, we don't want to we don't want to be stage parents," which is hilarious because my mother turned into a total stage parent. But I had to like find the auditions, find the shows, ask them to take me. And they were worried that I was going to be crushed, because, not everybody gets everything they audition for. And I'm certainly no stranger to rejection, but I was lucky enough that, like, at least, my first few shows when I auditioned, at least it went well enough that I wanted to keep auditioning. I didn't get discouraged, which was their big worry. So I think I was probably 9 or 10 when I did my first show. And then from then on, like, once I was in the scene, couldn't get me out of it. Like, just, I was in.
Yeah.
And they relaxed into it. They became very supportive, and they relaxed into it because, they had to drive everywhere for the first, 7 years. And then they sort of didn't know what to do. Like, when I got to be 16, I could drive myself. And I was sort of like, okay, bye, I'm going to go do shows now. And they were sort of like, but like, what do we do now?
So reading your biography, you have a huge, extensive education and performance education. And it seems like it was a huge part of your life, and you've learned from so many different people. How do you feel that this kind of education has impacted your life and how you go about theater and music? And how do you take it in from so many different people and decide what's good for you?
That's a really good question. The first thing is, the thing that I wish I could go back and tell past me and young people is that you have plenty of time, because I know that we all, and I'm no stranger to it either, but we all felt like, or we all feel like we have to hurry and make it as fast as we can. Like, we have this burning desire to succeed. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is training. And without training, you're just setting yourself up for failure. I had to learn all my lessons the hard way. I did have to learn a lot of things by failing. And what I found is that, I had a whole career, and then I stopped for a while, and then I went back to school and upped my training, and things really changed for me. So there is no such thing as too much training. So this is my advice. There is no such thing as too much training. Train all you can. Train in as many different things as you can. Do go to college. Don't say, I'm just going to go straight from high school and go straight to New York. That is the worst idea. Go to college and major in something with the arts, and do study acting. Learn all you can and keep learning. I guess that's my other big thing is you're never done. You're never finished learning. It's not like, okay, I have my degree, now I know everything, I'm done learning. You have to keep studying. I still take voice lessons and coachings with outside people. I still take acting classes. And so that's A. The other piece you said about, like, sort of synthesizing what you hear from so many different people. What I've learned is there's a lot of common themes that you keep hearing in studying with lots of different people. And so if you can distill it down, if you can learn how to distill it down into what works for you, that's really the key. And it's really important to hear it from a lot of different teachers. And it's important to experience learning from a lot of different artists, because everybody has a different style. So, maybe a teacher is trying to get a concept through to you one way and it's not working, but another teacher comes at it from a different angle and that clicks for you. That's really helpful. So it's really important to not just learn from one person. It's really important to make sure that you have a breadth of people that are helping you figure out who you are artistically, because that's really what it's all about. You have to figure out how to be the best version of yourself that you can be and not imitate anyone else, because that's such a temptation, and it's something that we all tend to do unconsciously. Especially when we're first starting out, we learn songs by listening to other people sing the songs, things like that. So you have to find your own voice, singing voice. You have to find your own sort of persona for theater, for acting, all that stuff. They help you discover yourself. And that's the work of it. And that's why you're never finished, because just like, we're always changing, right? Every day we're different. So we're never a static thing. We're not, a book sitting on a shelf. Every day we're different. So we have to be able to embrace that.
Yeah.
I hope that sort of made sense. Wow.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of changing gears a little bit. I know that you left performing for a while to work in the tech industry. What kind of
Did.
transition was that like?
It was weird. I mean, so okay, so I was burned out. I got a little burned out, or a lot burned out actually. So I had been working at the opera company at Opera Pacific, which is now sadly defunct, um, for 3 years. And the last year or so, I'd been an apprentice artist, which meant that either I was in class or getting ready for a show or doing a show or doing all those things the same day even, or doing more than one show at a time. It was super fun, but it was
Mhm.
also super intense. And so after doing that for that length of time, I just I had to stop and regroup and take a break. And I also felt like I felt very like cut off from the rest of the world because I didn't have a social life at all because there was no time. And so having that break and making that transition was really interesting. It was hard at first because all of a sudden I was just like, I didn't know who I was anymore because everything I was, I guess I saw myself through that lens of being a performer. So I had to figure out who I was when I wasn't on stage. And it was really scary at first, but it was also really freeing. And I pretty quickly discovered that even if you're not on a stage or in a show, there's always opportunities to be sort of front and center. And so that was always the kind of job that I was attracted to. I was always doing something where I tended to be managing groups of people and running projects and leading tours. And like literally my first day at my first job in Silicon Valley when I moved there from Texas, after spending a few years in Texas, they handed me a bullhorn and said, okay, you're leading tours to the construction site of our new office with like groups of engineers. Here you go, have a hard hat and a bullhorn. And like it was the furthest thing from like a desk job moment. So it was interesting seeing what was transferable from my theater background and my music background into like daily normal people life background and what wasn't. So it was an interesting time.
Yeah. So I know that you not only have an extensive musical theater career, but you also have a lot of opera experience. In what ways are the two styles different and what ways are they similar? Because they're very different, but in those kind of aspects of performing and going about it in like an acting wise and a singing wise and stuff like that.
That's a really good question. First of all, for me, what I've discovered is it's all musical theater. Like I think that we tend to put opera and classical music up on the sort of pedestal of that it's more somehow more I don't know worthy of admiration than like say musical theater, but it's not. It's really just it's a spectrum, and so there's more similarity than difference. What I feel like is 75% of it is really the same. Whether you're doing opera or musical theater, everything that's happening with your breath, everything that's happening with your nice open throat, everything that's happening with good technique, that's the same for musical theater and opera. It should be exactly the same. What's different is really more just the finishing or the sort of the little things that make it special. So, whereas in musical theater, when we hold out a note at the end of a song, it tends to be straight with no vibrato until we get to the end and then the vibrato comes in. Whereas in opera, the tone spins all the time. But those are things that come later. You have to get all the major building blocks in place first. And acting wise, the two have come closer together acting wise, because it used to be that they were both rather stagey. Although opera even more so than musical theater, but both opera and musical theater have really become much more realistic in terms of acting. So I feel like there's not that much difference now in terms of the acting, except for maybe when the material is different. Because with opera, you're doing material that's generally older, unless you're doing something that was just written. So, but, opera, you're doing stuff that was written a couple of 100 years ago. So the trappings are a little bit different, but the stories are the same. The emotions are the same. So the acting piece isn't as different for me as I would have thought. It's more a question of style.
Gotcha. So I know you've done a lot of work in the Bay Area in Northern California, which is like a huge theater city and one of the big theater cities of the country. How do you feel like the theater community differs from other big theater cities like LA or Chicago or New York?
The Bay Area Theater Company or Bay Area Theater community, sorry, my brain, for me was really wonderful. It has some of the best aspects of all the different sort of theater communities in the world. I mean, I grew up in LA, which is tough. LA is tough, tough, tough. There is no way around it. I had some pretty tough experiences auditioning in LA. I know we all did. Especially in those days, 40, 50 years ago, I don't think they made as much of an effort to be nice or treat people cordially or professionally in auditions. So I remember having some pretty obnoxious experiences auditioning in LA. And also the kind of the vibe in LA when I was starting out felt very cutthroat. Everybody was, out to make their fortune and going to be a star. And it was, high stakes. Everything was high stakes, high drama. The Bay Area, which I came back to performing, I had taken my hiatus doing tech work and nonprofit work, but then I was living in San Francisco area when I started taking voice and acting and stuff again. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go to an audition just for the heck of it. I'm just going to go. And I hadn't gone to an audition in ages. And just the feel was different. It felt much more collaborative. It felt like people in the community knew each other. And this is even kind of just at the very beginning of Facebook. But people knew each other. People respected each other. People knew who all the companies were. And there was a lot of people cross-pollinating, working back and forth at all the different companies. It wasn't so much like you'd find one place to work and then just do all your shows there. People really did tend to travel and know all the different companies. So that was the thing that I really liked about it. And just the fact that it was a much more supportive community. I would find like the atmosphere in callbacks was that we were there to play and have fun and be creative and not just like, this is, you're singing for your life. So that's the difference that I experienced in the Bay Area. And I met so many incredible people and so many great talents, every bit as talented, if not more so than everybody that I, was working with in LA. Mm-hmm. And especially on the creative side, I met some of just the most fantastic directors and music directors up there in the Bay that they were working in the Bay for that same reason that I found working in the Bay to be nice, because they had kind of maybe fled that New York or LA, life, death struggle. It was things in the Bay Area, much more laid back, still competitive, very competitive. Hundreds of people would audition, be big turnouts for auditions, big turnouts for callbacks, but just I would say a nicer atmosphere.
Okay. Kind of staying on the Bay Area, you were a staff musical director at the Hill Barn Theater Conservatory in the Bay Area. And yes. I was wondering what that transition was like from going from a performer to a part of the creative team, and how your experience as a performer kind of influenced your work as a musical director.
That's a really big question. And it was also an interesting time for me because I was MDing and performing at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So I would be MDing primarily during the day with the kids, and then I would go off to rehearsal wherever I was working or performance wherever I was working in the evening. So I had to learn how to shift gears a lot. But what I found was it was very gratifying working with the kids. It was very tiring, but in a good way. Kids, the thing that amazed me about working with kids is they don't get discouraged by things that are difficult, where grown-ups get psyched out by things that are hard, and they get into all kinds of like, oh, I can't do this. I'll never get this rhythm, or I'll never understand this phrase or whatever. Kids, you just give them Sondheim and explain like, here's how it goes, and they're off. Like they don't torture themselves the way that adults do. So seeing how kids work, what kind of made a light bulb going for me. It kind of reminded me of what it's like, that joy of creating and not torturing yourself while you're creating. So that was something that I really enjoyed about being a music director. But it was interesting being on the other side of the table. It was certainly interesting auditioning people. And it's funny because kids are not that different from adults. They're just small people. So you get all the same things. You get the same stuff as you get in grown-up auditions. You get all the attitudes. You get all the different ways of expressing oneself. You get all the kids that aren't prepared. You get the kids that are over prepared. So just seeing, just sort of, getting to observe and be part of that process was a lot of fun. And just seeing the amazing amount of talent that came across, in front of us too, that kind of blew me away. Like there was one little girl that auditioned, and I just assumed that she was probably some professional kid that had done a ton of shows. She was 10 years old, and she was, fantastic singer, amazing actress. And it turned out, like when I looked at her resume, she had never done anything. She had taken dance class, but she had never done any acting, never done any singing, and she was like ready for Broadway. So it was really fun, discovering those hidden gems, amongst the kids.
So you've done a lot of cabaret work, including 2 one-man shows. How do you approach a piece for a cabaret versus a piece as performing in a show as a character in that kind of because it's not in the same context? How would you approach that kind of work?
It's 2 different things. It's 2 very different things. There's a safety of being in a show and playing a character and being part of an ensemble. And I love being part of an ensemble. I love working with other people. And, you get so much from the people that you're acting with. It's not, I guess you can say there's more than one kind of performer. There's the sort of performers that come out on stage and they do their thing, and it doesn't really matter what's happening around them. That's one kind of performer. But the kind of performer that we all strive to be, or that we try to strive to be, is to be somebody who's open and who is connected to the other people they're with on stage. And so being part of the cast, you have this connection and these relationships with all these other people that grounds you in the show. And so that's the safety, and also the great thing about being in a standard show. When you're doing cabaret, it's just the opposite, right? It's just you, but it's you, and then you also have to try to bring something of characters that you're portraying in the songs that you choose. And it's a different medium. It's all about connecting. Instead of connecting with other people on stage, it's about connecting with the audience. So it's you and the audience, and it doesn't matter if there's 5 people or 50 people or 100 people. You can have a really great cabaret performance with just a few people, as long as they're responsive. But the audience is much more a part of what you're doing in cabaret, and you want to be with you. And in approaching the work, the most important thing, I think, is to try to select songs that are personal for you, that mean something to you, so that you can connect with the audience in a way that's authentic for them. They can see that the material means something to you. And you also hopefully can try to shape your show into having some kind of an overarching storyline. So like my first show that I did was all about sort of my trials and tribulations of a romantic life, as a young person, and coming out, and everything I did wrong. And like there was a whole section on breakups, because of course I had to have some spectacular breakups, like we all do. And there's a section about looking for the one, stuff like that. So kind of almost creating your own mini musical world. Like you can kind of create a framework that's like your own little musical, even if it just has one character in it. So that's really the difference. The thing with cabaret is you learn to trust yourself, and you learn to trust your hopefully wonderful music director / pianist person, who you should always listen to everything that person says, because they will save you time and again when you make terrible mistakes, either in rehearsal or in performance, or just do something stupid. They're there for you to help you. So you're really not alone. It's really a collaboration with that person. So it's just a different animal. Cabaret is just a different animal. And I had always kind of thought about doing it. Like I thought it was something I would like to do, but I hadn't really pursued it much because I was doing so many other things.
Mhm.
But when the opportunity literally fell into my lap, like when a club just approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a show 3 months from today? It has to be 65 to 90 minutes long, and there have to be 18 to 22 songs and blah blah blah." Like, and I was like, "Well, okay." But I was okay, yeah, because I'm never going to have another chance to just waltz in and do it. But yeah, it's just a different thing. But you do learn to trust yourself. And I remember really distinctly the first night, like of the first show that I did, was at a place in the old Dianza Hotel in San Jose, and we had the whole introduction and walking up on stage, and the piano started, and I grabbed the microphone and I was standing there, and there was this moment before I started singing, and I thought, okay, well, one of two things is going to happen right now. Either I'm going to open my mouth and I'm going to sing and I will live, or nothing is going to come out and then I'm just going to like fall into a hole in the earth and and everything will cease to exist. So it was the longest moment, the moment of like waiting for that sort of that first breath and then starting to sing. And then as soon as I started to sing, it was fine and I relaxed. But that was really one of the strangest, most interesting moments of my whole life, was that thing of just wondering, like, is this going to work? Is this going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, we've rehearsed and I know my stuff, but I really, in that split second, I had that moment of not knowing if it was really going to fly or not. And then I was so gratified when it did. I mean, like what came back to me was so gratifying that I was hooked on the whole cabaret thing, because it's a wonderful form, and it's so different from regular theater.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's underrated. People don't give it enough credit. I think it's people get it more now, but like 20 years ago, cabaret wasn't as big of a thing.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit to teaching. I know you teach voice lessons and vocal coaching, and I was wondering what made you realize that you wanted to teach.
That's another good question. I really appreciate your questions. I was fortunate because I had some really, really great teachers starting from an early age. Like when I was a kid and I first started out, my first teacher was this lady named Darlene Romano, who is, I think, still working at the College of the Desert in Palm Springs. I think she's the head of the music department there, but she was just a young singer when I took lessons with her. And she really gave me a grounding in good technique, solid technique, and also just kind of coaching, like just for general how you act in auditions and how you conduct yourself. She was pretty strict. So I was very fortunate to have her. And then I was very fortunate to have another teacher named Catherine Scatula when I was a little bit older, like when I was like 18, 19, 20. And Catherine had done all these, first national tours of things like Annie and Nine. And she was Broadway all the way. And she gave me a different piece than what Darlene gave me, because Darlene gave me all like the discipline and the regimentation and the practice and the hard work and all that stuff, which is so important, and breast support. But Catherine was the first person that really got into my head and really helped me as an actor, helped me develop as an actor. And the moment that I knew Catherine was going to be the best teacher ever was when I sang for her for the first time. And I was super nervous because I felt like she's this like big Broadway lady and I was still kind of a dumb kid. And I picked Anthem from Chess because I wanted to show her my chops and everything. And I was like really working it. And she's listening and she's like writing I could see her writing really big on her little pad or her spiral. And so I was done singing and I sang really hard, but I don't think there was much joy in it. And I hit the notes, but I was, and she flips over her pad and written in letters about this big, it says, "Get over yourself."
Oh my God.
I was like, I love this lady. She is the best. And like, we like bonded over that because she knew that I had talent and I had a good voice, but she also knew that I really needed like a mental overhaul. So to answer your question, I was so fortunate to have those two teachers. And then later when I went back to singing, I had a third teacher named Ava Victoria, who very much drew me out of my vocal shell and helped me reorganize my vocal technique as an adult and as an actor, and who really encouraged me again to bring acting to the table, not just singing, because that's what was holding me back. And I think that's where I hit the glass ceiling in my career. So she was the one who said, have you ever thought about being a teacher? After I'd been taking lessons with her for a while. And I said, not really. And she said, well, you should think about it. And so I started thinking about it. And then she encouraged me. She would have me come into her studio and help her out and like sort of be another pair of ears in the studio. And she helped me, she sort of trained me up on how to listen for problems, how to detect problems and issues in people's voices. And I really liked doing that. And she also encouraged me to go back to school. She said, well, if you want to do it, you should go back and finish your degree, and then you can, teach for real. And so I thought that was good advice. And that was what prompted me to go back to school and finish my degree. And my program that I took, my music program that I took, had a pretty big emphasis on teaching. And I discovered just from doing it, from having to do it, that I really liked it. And that it was something that it really I feel like it was sort of the missing piece, because I love performing and I love creating, but there's something that's so gratifying about being on the other side of it and helping other people connect to their own power and connect to their own talent and see them blossom. That it just, to me, is every bit as exciting as performing. And so I do find they kind of feed each other. I find that being an actor and a singer and a performer makes me a better teacher, and that being a teacher also makes me a better performer.
Great.
But yeah, but if my teacher had not said, have you ever thought about it? I probably would never have thought about it.
Yeah. So you teach voice lessons and vocal coaching. And yes. I know at AMDA, we had voice teachers and vocal coaches, and I was very confused at first. Could you kind of talk about the difference between each of them?
Exactly. And it's more a question of function than a person. Like, the same person can do either function, but a voice teacher is really all about technique. They're helping you, regardless of what kind of music you are singing, they're going to help you with proper technique, and they're going to help you to learn how to navigate your voice and how to sing in the healthiest, most sustainable way that you can sing. They're there to listen for problems. They're there to correct pitch things, focus things, everything about how you sing. And coach is a person that helps you work on specific material. So, and same thing, like when I was in college, I had a teacher and a coach, and they were different people. So a coach helps you learn roles. A coach helps you work on specific repertoire. So like in my first year when we were doing Deflator Mouse and Sound of Music, I worked with my coach on Deflator Mouse and Sound of Music, but my coach was not the person that helped me with mechanics. That's the teacher. So that's really the difference between a teacher and a coach. And like I said, one person can do both. So like if you come take lessons with somebody, that person can help you with both. But like I talk about it with people because I tend to operate more in the teacher sphere unless you're working on something specific. Like we can coach if you're working for an audition or if you're learning a part, or I kind of feel like if we're working on your audition book, that I kind of straddle a little bit of both, because I can be like a teacher and a coach for helping people develop their book. But that's a really good question. And that is probably the most common question that I get asked, because everybody's confused about it. I was confused about it until somebody explained it to me.
Yeah. So I know you focus a lot on Meisner technique in your lessons. And I was wondering how it's for people who don't know, it's a famous acting technique by Sanford Meisner. And I was wondering how you feel the Meisner technique is beneficial to singers as well as actors.
So again, a very insightful question. Meisner is such an interesting acting technique because it is so counter to every other sort of like method acting class that I had ever taken. Meisner is all about everything is real. There's no pretending. There is no acting. Everything is authentically coming from you. You're the instrument. So there's that. But the other piece, the thing that I love about Meisner is that Meisner gives you sort of a whole different mental framework, because the whole point of Meisner is that our main problem as actors is being self-conscious. And same thing with singers, right? We're always critiquing ourselves while we sing. Yeah. And so Meisner really teaches you how to put all of your focus, all of your energy on your scene partner or the person that you're telling the story to, even if they're not really there. It's all the focus is off of you. So that's one. And then the other piece is that there's no pretending in Meisner, right? So there's no pretending and all the focus is off of you. So it solves the two main problems that actors face. And it also solves the two main problems that singers face. So self-consciousness and, you know, and singing, you know, in quotation fingers, so that you can learn how to express just as yourself. So, I don't do like formal Meisner during lessons, but I just find that those concepts, especially that concept of not judging yourself while you're working, really applies to singers, because God, you know, that voice in your head is your worst enemy. And you have to learn how to silence that voice in your head so that you can work. You can't work and critique yourself at the same time. It's just, you just can't.
Yeah. So my last kind of final wrap-up question is, so I know you moved all the way across the world. I looked it up, and the Netherlands, Amsterdam area is 5,550 miles from Orange County. And I was wondering what helped you decide to make that kind of move?
You know, it was just kind of fate. I've always been a little bit of a mover, because when I was younger, I moved from Southern California to Northern California. And I did a couple of bounces back from California to Texas, to California to Texas, and back to California. But then I met my wonderful husband, who is Dutch. He's from the Netherlands. And we had always planned to, at some point, move here, because his folks are in their 80s and we wanted to have some quality time with them, because they're still pretty sharp and in pretty good shape and all that. But we were living in New York, actually. We had just relocated to New York in 2017 for his job. He's a techno whiz nerd guy. And he was working for a large internet company that you often use when you're looking for things. And so they relocated us from Mountain View, California to New York. Okay. And we really liked New York, and New York was a blast. And I also got to up my cabaret game in New York. But then when the opportunity arose, like, he sort of put it in his bio at work that he was open to transferring to the Netherlands, because that's where he was from. And he figured it would take a while for anything to like sort of percolate. But the minute that he put that out there on his profile, he got instant interview, and it just sort of happened. And we decided, well, it was kind of like the first cabaret show. It was like the fact that it just fell into our laps, and they said, here, we'll move you. It's never going to be easier. There's never going to be a simpler way just to have like sort of the magic carpet come and pick you up and move you to another place. So we figured, why not? And the thing that I've learned since being here, it's the same thing that I learned when I moved from Orange County to San Francisco, and from San Francisco to Texas, and Texas to New York, and down New York to the Netherlands. Actors, singers, theater people, the same everywhere. People are the same everywhere, but really theater people, the same. The people that I do Meisner with in my weekly class that we do, same exact issues as every single person that walks through my voice studio doors in San Francisco. So that to me is the biggest thing. Is it feels like, not to be too corny about it, but it does feel like creative people just in general are kind of the same everywhere. And so that's been the nicest lesson for me. Like, I wasn't sure, because the personality over here is a little bit different. Dutch people are extremely direct. Some would say rude, but just, they're extremely direct. But theater people are just theater people everywhere. So yeah, that pleases me to no end. Everybody has the same demons.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and these amazing words of wisdom. How can people find you? Is there anything you would like to plug or talk about or leave with us for our future?
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, you can always find me at my website on the interwebs, which is just my whole name. So it's John James Rinaldi at johnjamesrinaldi.com. And you can also find me on Facebook at the John Rinaldi Voice Studio. I have an Instagram that I can't remember what it's called, but because I hardly ever do it. But please, look me up if you are interested. If you are a professional and you want to study, that's great. But also if you're a beginner and you've never sung a note and you just want to explore, that's okay too. So just take that step and, we can discover together. And my parting shot is for everybody is just, if you're thinking about doing something, if you're thinking about trying an acting class, or you're thinking about trying a voice lesson or whatever, just do it. Quit thinking about it. Just do it. Get in there and do it on a regular basis. That's really the trick. Is honest to God, what makes the difference is not talent nearly so much as practice. The person that practices is going to get further than the person that's amazingly talented that has no discipline. So just keep doing it. Don't ever stop, and don't let anybody tell you to stop.
Thank you so, so much. That was amazing. Thank you for your time and for coming on at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, your time. Thank you to everyone who's watching. If you would like to donate to P3 Theater Company, you can go to p3theater.biz and find out what's coming up with P3 Theater Company and donate if you would like. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day and week full of happiness and joy in this horrible, crazy kind of time that we are living in right now. So
Amen.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a
Thank
great
you for having me too. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you.